From financial derivatives is here, but just before we talk about the commodities market and the impact of flooding, the central bank governor talked about that on Tuesday as part of what we should be concerned about moving forward. This was the result of yesterday's debt auction, Naira bond auction by the debt office for the month of September, wrapping up the third quarter of the year. Yields are trending higher. We told you yesterday morning the debt office will reopen 3 dated instruments. A total of 96.74 billion naira was traded in terms of subscription. So what was the stop rate for the first bond maturing or dated April 2023? That came in at 15% against 14.39% at the previous auction. The second dated bond maturing March 2025 came in at 15.15%, also higher than 14.60% at the previous auction. The third instrument, which is maturing February 2028, that's the paper, came in at 15.24%, also much higher than 14.69% at the previous auction. So you see the 3 Naira papers that were floated yesterday by the debt office. In a layman's language, the government yesterday spent more money to borrow 96.7 billion naira from investors, and that's what that story means in simple English. You need to be worried. Prices of some goods, commodity prices are going up. Rice, beans, and tomato, and it may affect more, though the flood is tapering, pulling back a little bit, but the consequences are beginning to manifest. Temi Tokwe Olugbile, one of the research analysts at Financial Derivatives, is bringing us up to speed this morning. I'm not too sure we have more good news than not so good news. So let's bring her into the conversation. Good morning.
Good morning, Bosen.
Yes, that's a big story, isn't it? This one big headline in the current burning issues for consumers.
Yes, definitely. It's something that we had already started anticipating, but then we carried out a survey yesterday, and the facts revealed that the flooding was starting to affect commodity prices such as rice, beans, and tomatoes. And so, obviously, we know that when this flooding happens, there's the risk to food output.
Maybe we shouldn't have talked about it. You and I were all over this on Tuesday, and you did a survey on Wednesday, then the prices were going up. Maybe we need to stop talking about it. We spoke about it on Thursday in the morning. Then the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, read the communique of the MPC in the afternoon, and they said exactly the same thing. 24 hours later, you folks check with the market, and prices are going up.
Yes, talking about it or not talking about it will not change what will happen. So with the food output is declining, and also there's also the part of transportation. So if there's flooding on the roads that are being used to transport these goods from the rural to the urban areas, that would affect logistics too. So there's even the output that was not affected by the flood can't find its way to the urban region because the roads are flooded. So there's all those risks.
And I'm not too sure we have any planes in the skies doing air transportation of agri-products. Not that I'm aware of. Not within the 4 corners of this Federal Republic of Nigeria. We don't have a single plane in the air.
I don't think so. That transports food from rural to urban, I'm not sure about that.
So it's all 90% on the road, and the remaining one on rail coaches.
Well, yes, rail coaches, but it's still, most of it, like you said, is on the roads. It's going to take a while before the rail concessioning that we're doing will start to impact on easing the pressure on the roads. It's going to take a while before that happens.
This is one serious bad news, but let's just take that very quickly and push it through and look at your survey. We'll get back to what is good and what is not so good. Trying to take a look at your price movement table. Yes, rice is already there. Folks, let's push that up by about 2 or 3 buttons. Then that takes us to where the price of rice and beans and tomato is coming through.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Here we go.
Yes, so like we said, the price of rice, beans, and tomatoes are up. And then if you read the text box at the bottom
of the page,
of the slide, exactly.
Bit, yes.
Yeah, we can see that we are also anticipating that flour would increase by 250 naira. and that is, we've already...
To 11,350?
Yes.
Next month, October?
Exactly. Which is
I should just end the show and go buy some flour.
Which is just next week. So, yes, and we're already starting to see that bread makers are saying that they're going to increase prices. Prices of bread are either increasing or the quality is depleting. So all of this is not so good for the Nigerian consumer right now.
This is not nice. So we're looking at rice prices now. We've seen 22 so far this year, and we're currently around 15 or 16,000 for 50 kg.
Yes, and as we enter the festive season, rice is definitely a commodity that is demanded a lot during the Christmas period, so that might increase beyond that as we go into the festive season.
If I'm not taking rice, I've got to eat some pasta, maybe even for kids and those of you who can still do. But again, the input to pasta also has its an issue with the palm oil. Yes.
And the wheat prices are going up. So the input to even the substitutes, which I'm not so sure is a substitute for rice, but to some people it is. So even the inputs to pasta are increasing, and that would feed into the pasta prices, domestic pasta prices.
So either rice or pasta, I can't escape this price increase.
Exactly.
Not too good news. But let's go back to what is good news and what is so bad news. Of course, the market already priced in the fact that the U.S. Fed will raise interest rate. They did that yesterday, surprisingly and happily, so to speak. Emerging markets pressure is declining this morning a little bit. But then we had oil. Crude prices, romance with $82 a barrel receded yesterday again, not with all the talk between Iran, the US, and everyone at the United Nations General Assembly.
So a few burning issues, like you said, the U.S. Fed, not so surprisingly, increased rates yesterday by 25 basis points, and they said that there's one more to come in 2018. There are 3 more to come in 2019 and 1 in 2020. So that will put pressure on the emerging markets, and we've already seen a few emerging markets like Russia and Turkey increase their interest rates because of the fear of capital outflows to these advanced countries. So there's also the fact that Brent is, as at today when I checked, it was still at $82 per barrel. So yes, it's all the expectations of a tighter oil market. FAC came out yesterday evening, and that is up by 3%, 3.8%.
Almost 750 billion was shared yesterday evening.
Exactly, 741 billion naira, and that is on the basis of increased oil production in the month of August. So those are a few burning issues. Flooding is affecting commodity prices, like we said. So those are burning issues.
Again, it's okay. We can take some of these external issues on board and see how they affect us. But everyone needs to know what is going on with the marketplace, as we told you in the program. Things are a little bit naughty. We're getting crude oil still around $82 a barrel. That tipped us off a little bit early today, but of course we're still getting this all into our FX reserves, and of course what Nigeria should be looking to in terms of our own output. We're still below 2 million barrels per day, which is in our budget outlook and all that. But again, let's take this a little bit and shift gear a little bit into the electricity sector. Do you think is anything positive going on here?
Okay, so yes, power output increased only marginally to about 3,500 megawatts. So we're still below 4,000. So that's nothing much to celebrate. But just yesterday, the Federal Executive Council approved a sum of about $64 million for a power plant in the Escravos community. So that is good news relatively for national output and within the community, because the last time they tried something like this, the community complained about them taking so much gas and there's no power in their community. So that could help their local power output. So that's really all in the power sector. We're still below 4,000. We're still definitely suboptimal.
I agree. If you take gas out of my backyard, I should have electricity, which is is a corollary. If I sit next to the river, I should have the freshest of water to drink.
Yes.
Or fish, or fresh fish,
exactly.
as the case may be,
yes,
or fresh fish as the case may be. But again, if you take this a little bit further into the, let's look at the global agro-commodity prices, and we're sticking with wheat, which is a basic input for either you're doing a bakery business or you're doing pasta business.
Exactly.
What is the outlook from what we know about the weather conditions, whether it's in Russia or in Europe or in the US, major producers?
So right now, there's the weather conditions that are driving up prices. And as we go forward, I mean, right now, the advanced countries are about to enter the winter season. So that may also be unfavorable weather for the wheat output. So I believe strongly that the wheat prices are still going to keep increasing in the short term, and that would definitely reflect on our domestic commodities, like we said.
So is there anything different in terms of corn and cocoa prices?
So both corn and cocoa prices are also up, and that cocoa is despite the plan of Ghana, which is a major producer, to boost its output. So Ghana came out to say that they plan to boost their output by at least 1 million tons, and that is expected to drive down prices. But that's also not good news for Nigeria, because we're an exporter of cocoa. That's one of our major exports. And then we have that sugar prices are down, and we have India, a top sugar producer. The government has come out to give incentives for sugar exports in the 2018/2019 harvest. So we expect that to drive down prices further, and that is good news.
Is there anything whose price is not going up these days? It looks like every day something is going up.
Yes, it depends on what is going up. I mean, sugar going down is good for Nigeria's import bill. So, but majorly most of our import commodities are going up, and our export commodities are going down. So prices of our export commodities are going down. So that is not so good news for Nigeria.
Not so good.
No.
We'll be getting into October by this time next week or much earlier. So maybe we'll compare notes again to find out if things are getting better. Hopefully. Yes. Hopefully. Thank you very much, and the rest of your team, for bringing us up to speed on critical consumer prices and the global issues as they affect the Nigerian market. Of course, one of the stories that may have future implications on the positive side was the EFDB, that's the African Development Bank, contributing $11.82 million in loan support to Plateau State for the state government to ramp up on its potato value chain project that was launched yesterday by EFDB Nigeria in Abuja. Plateau State will be contributing $1.54 million to this project, which is costing about 5 billion local currency. That's one big story in the news this morning. About 11,500 households in Plateau State are expected to benefit from this new potato value chain. About 60,000 jobs will most likely be created. That's according to the EFDB 38-page document, which is released overnight, and you can read that up online. And 50% of those who will be beneficiaries will be women. That's how the EFDB is targeting this. They are the ones who are on the farm and along the value chain of potato. Plateau State is one of the poorest states in Nigeria, about 70% of poverty rate in that state around the country's Middle Belt region. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. We'll talk about the business of medicine. We'll talk about fake and adulterated drugs and a new deadline set for New Ocean in January 2019. We want to hear all about that. Your health is wealth. Take a listen. Don't go anywhere.